kingdom of heaven on earth. May those who have ears to hear, hear. In our neighborhood in Philly, there's a scrap of land running along a creek called Gresham Creek that's been protected from development. And it's just a scrap, but it leads then into the Wissahickon Park along the Wissahickon. And on a map, it looks kind of like a strip of paper has been torn out of the map, kind of revealing a green. And there's an access point not too far from our home to kind of the northernmost little bit of this. And there are two little loops of walking trails through a scrappy, kind of brushy, riparian woods. And these particular trails near us are small, and they don't link up to the others. I mean, the little bit of green space close to us is penned in by septic tracks on one side and a very busy thoroughfare on another, and then neighborhood streets. So it's small, but it's big enough for a lot of life. We've seen foxes there, and woodchucks, and we once found a deer skull, which is really cool. And there's a spot under the bridge where folks in need of shelter occasionally bed down for the night. And a week or so ago, I was poking around along the creek in the cool early spring air, and I'd occasionally look up to enjoy that color that sunlight makes when it shines through new leaves in the canopy, that tender, bright, luminous green. And just weeks before, when you look up, it had been branches and buds and then the sky. So I was walking along, looking up and into the canopy, and I looked down and I turned a corner, and I was stopped short by the sight of this gnarly old hunk of a tree trunk with bushes of leaves bursting out from these big warty knots. And it was right at my eye level and below, these wild, dense clusters of leaves that you'd expect to come out of branches, not directly out of the trunk. And as I said, this was like a hunk of a trunk. It was only the base of the original tree that was left, and it had to have been a big tree. It was bigger around than I could reach, and the top had been shorn off maybe 10 feet up. And it was clearly had been weakened from rot for a long time before the tree broke. And it must have happened some years ago because you could only see part of what was left of the tree on the other side of the creek quite decomposed. And I had become familiar with the base of this tree, with this kind of ragged end of the trunk over the winter on my little strolls around, because I'm trying to learn about mushrooms, and there isn't a lot that's fruiting in the cold. And so on my winter walks, I noticed these scaly purplish fungus things growing along on this trunk, along a wide scar where the bark had fallen off. And now I'm saying I'm trying to learn about I haven't been doing so well, so I can't actually tell you what kind of mushrooms these are, and I gave it another effort in preparing the sermon so I could impress you all and make it seem like I know what I'm talking about. But what I can say is that of the options of whatever kind of fungus this are, they're all in the category of saprophytic fungus, which means They grow on rotting wood. It's a decomposer. And that's what it looks like on this trunk with the bark falling off. It's breaking it down bit by bit. And all of this is to say, I thought that this tree was dead. Quite dead. And that's why I was surprised this spring when I turned the corner on the trail, and here it was, pushing out leaves again for a new spring. Don't box in this box elder. Right? This elder still has got something to show the world. And I looked up and I noticed, which I hadn't noticed before, there was one strong branch left, growing just below where the trunk had shorn off, that ragged end. And on that branch were new leaves, bright with the fierce green flame of life force, bright with the sacred vitality drawing up from the roots, reaching out again into the sunlight, into the air for another spring, despite its body slowly decaying around it. So here ends the parable about the kingdom of heaven on earth. Those who have ears to hear, may you hear. Thanks be to God.